For a brief but totally rad period in the 1980s, there was nothing on TV that could hold a candle to Miami Vice. The series ran for 5 seasons from 1984 to 89 on NBC. While its rich yet unrealistic plot and character relationships were 2 of its key features, it was also noted for its integration of contemporary pop and rock music, which fit in perfectly with its stylized visuals. Throughout its run, numerous musical guest stars passed through the set. Rockstar musical stars included Ted Nugent, Gene Simmons, and even Willie Nelson, to name a few. Keep watching to learn about all the other chart-topping musical guests who popped up on the iconic crime drama. Little Richard, Out Where the Buses Don't Run. In this fan-favorite episode, Little Richard played a minor role as a preacher who was every bit as energetic, eccentric, and off the wall as he was. In real life, the performer broke away from the budding rock and roll scene in the 1950s to join the church as a born-again Christian. In his Miami Vice appearance, Little Richard's character, Reverend Marvell Quinn, preached an anti-drug message and sent his disciples out to spread the good word on the streets of Miami's South Beach. Glenn Frey, Smuggler's Blues. This episode drew inspiration from Frey's hit 1984 song of the same title. When it came time to film it, Frey was asked to join the cast for a guest spot, kicking off a trend of musician guest stars that remained a vital part of the show's heart and soul throughout its run. In this episode, Frey played a charismatic yet disheveled pilot named Jimmy, who joined Tubbs and Crockett on a covert undercover mission. Frey later wrote one of his biggest career solo hits, You Belong to the City, for the show. Phill Collins, Phill the Shill. Phil's appearance on Miami Vice was one of the series' standout moments. Several of his songs, like I Don't Care Anymore, In the Air Tonight, and Take Me Home, were featured in the program in earlier episodes, but in this installment, he showed up on screen as a scumbag con man posing as a game show host. Another thing that made the episode so memorable was the fact that it featured an original song, Life is a Rat Race, which Collins wrote specifically to coincide with his appearance. Although if you compare the track to The Man with the Horn by Genesis, you'll find they're essentially the same song. Before we tell you more about famous rock stars on Miami Vice, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Frank Zappa, Payback. Zappa, love him or hate him, was known for many things. He was a pure talent who certainly knew his way around a recording studio. He could pick up and play just about any instrument, was a decent artist, and a poet who could paint some rather beautiful, albeit surreal, wordscapes. While he could do many things, acting was never something people associated him with. That's why it was surprising when his funny-looking mug ended up on Miami Vice. Despite his lack of acting experience, Zappa gave a convincing performance as an intimidatingly unrelenting character hell-bent on recovering a large chunk of money that had gone missing. Leonard Cohen, French Twist. The renowned singer-songwriter was convinced to take a guest spot on Miami Vice by his son. At first, the idea was for Cohen to play the episode's main villain, but his part was cut to just 2 brief phone conversations that totaled a little under a minute of screen time. As the story goes, Miami Vice's casting director called the musician up one day after shooting his first scene and told him he had given a fantastic and truly wonderful performance. Cohen, being the perceptive devil he was, knew what was coming and said, "You mean I'm fired, right?" The casting director confirmed his suspicions, explaining that Cohen's scenes had indeed been cut and the role was given to another actor instead. Miles Davis, Junk Love. When jazz legend Miles Davis appeared on Miami Vice, he was experiencing the height of his commercial success. While Davis was known by some as being the Prince of Darkness, when he showed up in this 1986 episode as a brothel owner named Ivory Jones, he fully cooperated with the detectives to help track down the baddie they had their sights on. Gene Simmons, the Prodigal Son. In this episode, Crockett and Tubbs traveled to the Big Apple to take down a violent and powerful Colombian cartel. Simmons played Newton Windsor Blade, a character that was described as the Sears Roebuck of controlled substances. Even though he wasn't donning his signature Kiss makeup and getup, trading in his trademark look for an all-white silk suit, the bassist looked like he was in his element as a rich boy drug slinger surrounded by half-naked women. His character helped Crockett and Tubbs by hooking them up with a contact in New York that came in handy when taking down the cartel. Ted Nugent, Definitely Miami. Nugent played a gun-wielding psycho named Charlie Bassett in this memorable Season 2 episode. Bassett was a killer whose smoking hot wife tried to seduce Crockett in an attempt at luring him into a compromising situation. At the climax of the episode, there's a big showdown at a rock quarry in the middle of nowhere. It's during this sequence that Nugent's character got gunned down, meeting the brutal end he deserved. The episode featured Nugent's 1986 song Angry Young Man, which appeared on his Little Miss Danger's LP. The show would later use the title track from that album in an episode sharing the same name. Sheena Easton. Pop star Sheena Easton was initially brought in for a bit part, but ended up sticking around for 5 episodes. She played a character who was a singer named Caitlin Davies, who married Don Johnson's character. Back then, getting a chance to hook up with Johnson was the epitome of dream come true for women everywhere. Following a classic TV trope, the two got together after Crockett was assigned to protect her as a witness. Willie Nelson, El Viejo. Nelson was probably the most experienced musician turned actor to appear on Miami Vice, and throughout his career, Willie's racked up over 40 acting credits. In this episode, he played a grizzled renegade Texas Ranger named Jake El Viejo Pearson, who interrupted a Bolivian drug deal that the detectives were staking out by showing up out of nowhere and making off with the money. At the end of the episode, El Viejo helps Crockett and Tubbs take down a Bolivian drug lord, but ends up losing his life in a shootout. James Brown, Missing Hours. What do you get when you combine a government conspiracy, the paranormal, and one of the hardest working men in show business? James Brown's bizarre guest appearance on Miami Vice is what. The legendary soul musician played an estranged spokesman for a sketchy organization dedicated to documenting close encounters of the third kind. While the episode is a bit abnormal compared to Miami Vice's typical fare, it's arguably one of the series' best. Barbara Streisand, Badge of Dishonor. Babs made an uncredited blink and you miss it walk-by cameo appearance in a scene where Tubbs and Crockett pull up to a yacht owned by a suspected criminal who happens to be a crooked cop. The scene was filmed at the Bayside Shopping Center and Marina in Miami. At the time, Streisand and Don Johnson were dating. Their relationship was plastered all over the gossip rags, and they even appeared on the cover of People magazine. Barbara and Don later collaborated on the title track of Streisand's 1988 album Till I Loved You, but by the time the album hit record stores, they had already split up. David Johansen, The Dutch Oven. Best known for being the leader of the hugely influential punk band The New York Dolls, Johansen had already embarked on a solo career by the time he showed up on Miami Vice. Johansen made his appearance performing his song King of Babylon in a party scene aboard a yacht that involved copious quantities of illicit substances. The charismatic rocker's swagger was seen in full force as he danced across the vessel's deck. Now it's time to hear from you. Which one of these guest stars was most surprising to hear about? Let us know in the comment section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.